All right, Nurses on Fire. So we are back with Lisa Peterson once again. And this episode is kind of going to be a lot more raw and real than past episodes have been because we're kind of both in our feelings right now about the things that are going on just around us. And to say that this has been a really hard time is to put things lightly because, I mean, not only are we dealing with these issues of coronavirus and quarantine and all those other things, and we're just now dealing with these heavily heated conversations, riots, lockdowns, and now curfews, because this country is in an outrage over, you know, again, quite a few Black deaths, not just one. I wish it was just like one, but quite a few Black deaths that have almost basically been unanswered. And, you know, it's hard. It's hard for me. I haven't really talked about it much, um, but it's hard for a lot of people out there. And Lisa, I know this is a very hard time for you too. So, I don't discount anybody who's not a person of color that is feeling this because above all else, we're human. And, you know, this is it's just hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we were talking offline that, yeah, just because my skin is a certain color doesn't mean that I want change just as bad as anyone. And we can all have different lives and different experiences. I think I've shared, I'm not sure with your audience, but like I came from lower middle class home, and the struggles are real. And that is what motivates me. And that's what, I'm always voting for the underdog. Like I will literally change parties because of looking at the underdog. It's kind of a funny thing that I watch myself. Like I want to help those who are needing a hand up and if I can use my platform, my voice, my body, my actions to help someone else, I'm going to do whatever I possibly can to do that, period. And I'm learning here, it's a wake up call because like, I think all of us wanted to do more in the past and haven't necessarily been able to. And I think the more we go into it, like even offline, we were looking and talking about certified financial planners. And I was just shocked to learn that only 3.5% of the 80,000 certified financial planners in the United States are Black or Latino. And that just shocked me of like, that is obviously a serious problem because then you don't have the ability to find advisors who look like you and understand you and your family and the culture and things that I think are really important.
Yeah, I think it's super important too. And we can kind of say, oh, well, aren't all certified financial planners vested to do what's in the best interest of everyone? Yeah and no, because if you don't know, if you're not made aware of certain issues, or if that's not been part of your reality, or you have no context around it, how can you really, truly, and effectively create a financial plan that is going to actually benefit someone? Just like in the CFP episode where we were talking about how to find a good financial advisor or what to look for in a financial advisor, we talked about like the FIRE movement, for example. If you don't understand like how somebody has to set up their lives in order to retire early, you're not going to be able to to effectively create a financial plan for them. It's just like if you don't understand that, like me in 2008, I was a young Black woman targeted for these subprime loans, you know, and now I have a bankruptcy and all this kind of stuff in my background. And without good financial literacy, I'm prone to fall for that again, because again, what I want to do is build a legacy for my family. and I'm well intentioned, but there are predatory people out there that know that I'm well intentioned and will try to sell me $1,000 a month life insurance policy that I don't need, just because they know that I don't have the financial literacy or wherewithal in order to say that this is not something that I need. And that's the whole reason why this platform exists, is to give you that information so you don't make those mistakes. But we also need people that are in the financial professional space to be our allies and to understand our issues. And so it's not a race thing. It's about making sure that the person that you're trusting with your money and your finances really understands your background and understands your issues.
And understands the risks is what I also, heard you mention earlier about lifespan or challenges with health or, all these different things. Like those affect the statistics, because what happens when you go to a financial advisor is they all have different data collectors that, put it into a black box, and there's all these assumptions that they're making. Like 100 assumptions. And if the assumptions aren't adjusted for, lots of different factors, if they don't care enough, then what comes out on the other side is completely not accurate for what you think it is. So you see those numbers, you're like, oh, I'm on track. As long as I save this amount of money, you're going to be fine. But I think what you're bringing to light and wanting people to know is A, don't trust those. B, make sure that they're asking questions, or that they really do understand what the different risks are for, who you are, what you look like, how your history of like health issues. If you had parents who all died, at a certain age or have a disease, like let's make sure that we prepare for that. You just don't know all the things, but those are the questions that you're wanting them to ask you when you engage with someone to write a financial plan for you. They're making sure and understanding the health risks as well as job risks, because you were saying that you might have a higher chance of losing a job, and these things matter. So you might find that your amount of money to be on target just to be safe, again, may not happen, may be irrelevant, but it may be a much higher amount of money that you're going to be saving and putting aside than a white woman.
Right.
It sounds like that's a very viable possibility. So how do you make sure that someone's paying attention to that and taking it seriously?
Definitely, definitely. And then I think, like, even if you're not a person of color, but if you're a woman and you're married, like, does your financial advisor understand that sometimes people are in like maybe abusive marriages, that they need to have like a different financial plan on the side where, they have an escape route? Just little things like that is just, during these times, brings my awareness to the fact that people just need to be sensitive to other people's needs. And as professionals, if we're not taking time to learn and grow, even if this is not something that we're familiar with, I think we're doing a disservice to the people that we're serving. And so for people who, just don't know what to do, or as a CFP who wants to learn more and wants to do better, what are some resources that you've found that can be helpful? But I'm talking about like from a CFP perspective, if you want to do better in understanding a lot of the societal issues that people of color have had to face, so that you can prepare effective financial plans your people of color, your population who are people of color. What are some resources?
So, as folks may know, I have a community that I serve. And this past week, I was, doing a lot more research for myself about what can I do to become more informed. And it may even be that some of these resources that we'll talk about could be shared with your advisor. Like sometimes we might even have to be that obvious. Like, hey, I want you to know how I want you to communicate with me, this is like setting good boundaries with people that we like them overall, but we know they could be more sensitive perhaps. So we can send this stuff to them, and maybe we can post these things on the show notes for this conversation. But what I was looking into first and foremost was this whole topic of anti-racism. Like, what is that about? And so there are some books and there are some resources that I've tuned into that I'm just blowing my mind at how insightful and helpful. And I will say the one thing that I feel like applies to this conversation that really has stuck out at me is there is a concern about, let's just say, folks who are not of color, like white, what have you. I don't know all the ways that they define this, but a defensiveness, like this defensiveness that if you bring it up, that immediately this sort of defensive posture comes, like, I'm not racist, kind of, or whatever, defensiveness, you know what I mean? I mean, and if we can be okay with the fact that that is happening, but yet it doesn't have to, like, all it is to me right now is a sign that someone needs more coaching. They need more understanding. They need to understand that this is not the response that's going to get them where they want to go. It's not about denial anymore. And so that's what I'm getting through these resources. It's about, let's look at even that first. So if you were to tell your advisor, who may not look like you, that you'd like them to be more sympathetic, and you get a defensive response, just know that's pretty common. But it doesn't have to stop there.
Mm-hmm.
You can lean into it and say, I understand there's a desire, whatever, a response of being defensive. I'm not going to hold that against you. I'm going to give you a chance to just say, look into these resources. There's things here for you to learn. And I really do wish that somebody had been more like that for me in the past, because then it doesn't have to be about me going into a shame storm or a blame storm. All of a sudden I can be like, oh, you're giving me an opportunity to become educated. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Definitely. But I think, some advisors are more open than others. Like I share with you, I've shared some resources with a financial advisor and totally got pushback from it. But to me, I don't get upset about it, because then it shows me that that's not somebody that I would want to work with. That's not somebody that, could probably help me in the capacity that I needed to help, that I need help. It's not saying that they're a bad financial advisor at all. They're probably excellent at what they do. But a financial advisor that's a very personal relationship. And it's very unique and individual to what you need. And so you need to make sure that that relationship is serving you.
Yeah. And that I think what I'm learning through all of this is that we don't have to say I'm not racist. Like that we're actually in denial by saying that. Like, cuz it's impossible. It's in the air we breathe. And so instead of having that conversation, it's like lean into learning more about the ways to show up without denial.
Yep.
Like, that's
Yep.
it. That's it.
Yep.
Then the door is
Yep.
open, and all
Yep.
of a sudden conversation can start to happen, and we can learn how to start making a difference in the world. And I think that's what all of us want. I think most of us, like, if we've chosen somebody, they want the best for us. Like, you can
Yes.
feel that. But
Yes.
this other part is new for a lot of people. And I have shed a lot of tears even over the past 48 hours, because the light bulb is coming on. It's like peeling back the onion skin. There's always another layer of self-discovery here for how we can become better people.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want to share some of those resources?
Sorry. So I'm really into this guy, Lama Rod Owens. He's written a book with a couple other folks called Radical Dharma. And so if you're someone who likes Eastern philosophy, they're exploring it. And he's got a new book coming out in a couple of weeks, which I'm also going to get, which is called Love and Rage. And it's like diving into, he's queer, you know, and Black, and he's also a llama, and he's looking at, it's like going into his mind of the challenges, because this is all about empathy, right? And about
Mm-hmm.
putting yourself in someone else's shoes, you know, to begin with. There's also 24 books for white people to read. Gotta love that. Uh, the other big one is what I think we were talking about earlier, and I don't have this book yet, but I'm on hold at the library, is Fragility. What's that book?
White fragility.
Right, Fragility. Yep.
Yeah.
So that deals with the defensive posture, right? And Black Lives Matter reading list. Like, there's so many books. I mean, I don't think there's enough time to read all of them, but I think what we're going to be trying to do are find the books that rise to the top, that really speak to us and can help us to become more informed about things that we may not have very good understanding. And I'm kind of blown away at how much you can learn in a very short amount of time, actually, if you put your heart into it.
And I have another book to recommend. It's called The Black Tax, The Cost of Being Black in America. Especially as it pertains to these issues. I don't think that you just have to read exclusively about Black people, obviously, but I think this book has a good historical context that goes back to the economic inequities, especially for Black people, just from the time of slavery. And so it just puts things into perspective, but is really heavily researched, and goes to just current times and how, like, even in the highest level jobs, like being hired at a law firm, there's a lot of inequity. And so I really like that book, and kind of like understanding those issues, to me, I feel like will make you a better ally for your clients. And so that's what I recommend. Yeah.
That's great. And I'm totally checking that one out too. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's a Google talk. If you don't want to read the book, there's a really good talk that he did at Google. But I'll post all of this stuff in the show notes, and I look forward to having more of these conversations, um, about with my audience, about what they feel like they would need, just in this time of trying to unwrap these issues, but also, still focusing on all the things that go into being financially responsible. And I think a lot of us are trying to better ourselves financially because we want to be in a better position to help our family and to support social causes. And, we can't do that if we're broke. So, um, yeah, I love that, Lisa, you're open to having this conversation with me, and you're not shy to have it. And that I really truly feel like you care. And I'm really grateful for you, just in general, because you're just an awesome person. And we need you, girl. We need you.
I appreciate this conversation too. And I told you offline, I mean, I think the thing that I'm working through right now is, no matter how much you care, when you're learning something and you're trying to get deeper into it, there is that fear of making mistakes and saying the wrong thing. And I'm giving myself a lot of compassion, because if I get wrapped up in that, then I won't show up, and that doesn't serve anybody. But if I can learn and be willing to fall down and make mistakes and hold myself accountable to those mistakes, because every time, right, just to be clear, those mistakes are things that like open portals of like learning. That as long as I have the space to be that, then it's just awesome. So thank you.
I really appreciate you showing up.
Thank you.